Hey everybody, what's up? Yeah, you can see I'm using using my Sonic Encyclopedia for a cover, if you will, a video cover. As I read off Dan Drazen's review of Sonic Universe 41. Yeah, it's the newest review he posted. The issue, of course, published about 3 months ago, in August of this year. And of course, this is the Sonic Universe number 41, of course, is the first issue of the Secret Freedom Fighters arc. That's right, the Unsung Heroes, as it's called. Now, you know, when I printed out the thing, it's about almost 4 pages, but hopefully I have enough power to do this. But anyway, let's get into it. Of course, he talks about who did the cover for Sonic Universe 41, which is Yardley and Downer. Enter the Secret Freedom Fighters, quote unquote. Just what this franchise needs. More characters to track. As a night scene, it's an improvement over Sonic the Hedgehog 237 and its misused Moonlight cover. It's actually really good at squeezing in 7 characters while still allowing room for the title. For the title, blurb, and other information. Any other facts will have to wait for the Sonic Spin column. Now, quote unquote, Unsung Heroes, Part 1, The Big Guns. Okay, story, Ian Flynn. Art, Tracy Yardley. Ink, Jim Ash. Color, Steve Downer. Lettering, Jack Morrell. Assistant editor, Vincent Lovely. Editor, Paul Kaminsky. Editor-in-chief, Victor Golick. Texas Hold'em coach, Mike Perithro. Sega licensing, Anthony and Cindy. This is what he says, and I quote, "Let's pass over the recap and the boilerplate opening page and start with the handy-dandy moniker conversation. And start with the handy-dandy moniker conversation table, conversion table, moniker conversion table, whatever you call it. I'll provide a link down below as I usually do. The scorecard without which you can't tell the players. It seems that Harvey Who thought that the members of the spiffy new Hero Squad should use aliases to confuse the readers, or the other side. Still works. And to avoid confusion, I'm not going to use the quote-unquote call signs in these reviews. But in case you get confused at some point in this story arc, here's a who's who so you know what's what. Silver, codename Ace. Elias, codename King. Parentheses, duh. They're basically saying, duh, of course it'd be codename King. Lyko, Wolf, one of the twin wolves, Queen of Hearts. Lita Wolf, codename Queen of Diamonds. Shard, codename Jack. Larry Lynx, codename Joker. Alright, and here we go. Here we go, folks. I think Ian came up, quote unquote, this is Dan Drazen's review, and I quote, I think Ian came up with these names during an Atlantic City casino weekend. I haven't seen this level of inspiration since the episode of Gargoyles, where we learned that one of the henchmen of crime boss Tony Dracon, a guy who wears glasses, was nicknamed Glasses. Excuse me. Seriously. It must have taken Draken a week to come up with that one. I mean, playing cards, they could just as easily have gone with colors and numbers as in Star Wars Gold Leader, red 3, red 5, and anyone with a touch of the poet. Okay, red 3 and red 3, red 5. And anyone with a touch of the poet would have come up with the names of flowers or stars or constellations or birds, even mash up bird names as in the Hunger Games trilogy. The quote-unquote call signs do serve a tactical purpose. They're meant to confuse the other side in case the bad guys are listening in on the radio or whatever. The problem is it can confuse the reader as well. I mean, why even bother with nicknames unless they knew Nagus or his cronies might be listening in to the ops banter? In being comic book characters, they can out-banter an RAF squadron, an RAF squadron, any day of the week. Except for a couple of action sequences where the characters know where they have to shut up and get the job done. Back to the story, which requires a little bit of backstory. Harry tells the gathered ops that Jeff is making a run for the border. He wants Silver to tag him with a homing device. Silver, for his part, reminds Hogg that the latter is supposed to be going over his intel, trying to identify the traitor. This makes me like my theory that Harvey himself is the traitor even more, having the fox crunch the numbers on the henhouse, as it were. See, hold on for a second, folks. I have to keep my dog around. My dog, I don't know why she wants to go out again. Anyway, getting back to review, and I quote, "And before you could say, quote-unquote, Valley of the Wind, which is not as procrastinating as Windy Valley, and is also associated with Hayao Miyazaki, we find Silver, Shard, Larry engaged in attaching a homing device to Jeff's skyboard. Since that in itself didn't take very long, Silver and Shard then debate how to best follow Jeff down the nearby hole. Larry takes the direct approach and falls in. Silver and Shard rescue him before he's impaled on the stalagmites below. This leads to conversation in Larry's backstory, which actually has one good line. Quote unquote, I tried to run for public office, but my ballot box spontaneously combusted. Okay, what was it? Right. Anyway, we also see him meeting up with Harv and Uncle Chuck as they enlist him in a single bound. Oh, no, hold on. Anyway, we also see him meeting up with Harv and Uncle Chuck as they enlist him. Shard, meanwhile, rags on Silver's tendency to, quote-unquote, leap conclusions in a single bound. To leap two conclusions in a single bound. WRT, the identity of the traitor. Meanwhile, they arrive at a death trap, but Larry saves them the trouble of probing it by walking in and setting it off. Larry's gift of misfortune affects the trap, and there's no harm done. The noise, however, alerts Jeff, who's up ahead, getting his Christmas shopping done by stealing relics. Our trio then arrives at a booby trap pit, which Shard disarms by harvesting the fruit from the vine, as it were. Before they move on to the next step, we see Jeff keeping an eye on them. The squad arrives in the crypt of a fourth, quote-unquote, elite of Nagas, a bird named Val. Since Nagas was recently Since Naugus has recently been bedeviled by 3 of the elites, it becomes an open question as to whether a 4th elite... Hold on for a second, folks. Oh, I have to let my dog out. I don't know why she does this when I do videos. I don't know why. Okay, what was I? Alright, the squadron lives in the crypt of a 4th quote-unquote elite of Naugus, a bird named Val. Since Naugus has recently been bedeviled by 3 of the elites, it becomes an open question as to whether a 4th elite will make him sane, stupid powerful, or just plain stupid. Since Jeff has apparently taken a hike with Val's remains, Silver figures out how far back along the path he's gone and aims a shot at where he is. I guess that skeet shooting is one of the diversions open to him in his future realm. Jeff still manages to get away and to mess up the underground before taking off on his bugged boogie board. As the trio pull themselves together and work on getting out of the hole, Lyko, Lita, and Elias are running an underground maze of their own. The point is not to find someone, but to avoid being found by what looks like Naugus doing him impression of the fiend fire from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Alright. This may go into 2 parts, and if it does, I apologize. Alright. The head score. This starts out with your basic Archie Sonic story. Action and humor in equal amounts. It also contains a huge question mark. Who the heck is Shard and where did he come from? Unfortunately, we're given not so much as a text box answering these questions. We're only told that he's a reformed Metal Sonic, as opposed to being an unorthodox Metal Sonic, I suppose. He also has a rapid-fire personality and enough grit to stand up to Silver, who can be what the British call a dull dog, quote-unquote a dull dog. He's actually the best character in the arc so far, but it feels like he was clobbered together by Ian and airdropped into the story the way, quote-unquote, Predator. Airdropped into the story the way Arnold and his playmates were dropped into the jungle in quote-unquote Predator. Once again, we have the doctrine of the loose continuity to thank for this. Larry is an old character, i.e., he's been around doing the same shtick of causing survivable mishaps for a while. A true jinx of Larry's caliber wouldn't walk away from a death trap with minor cuts and bruises. Also, it's possible that a jinx death trap would do nothing at all. But there's not a lot of action and more action in that. Jeff's escapes was something of a muddle. I thought that seeing him surrounded by a blue whatever meant that he was frozen or something. Apparently that didn't work out so good. This is a good story, even when it bogs down and becomes a routine story. Silver does his thing, Larry does his, Jeff does his. We've seen this before. That's what makes Shard so interesting and so frustrating when you're left asking, where the heck did he come from? Let's see where this goes. Head score, 7. And remember, if it's a straight 10, 10, 10 in all 3 categories, as I've mentioned in other reviews I've read of his, of Dan Drazen's, then that's a good thing. That's 30. And if it has a backstory, it's 60. Those are the high scores. So right now you got 7.